This is an Eye on Annapolis bonus podcast.
I love this time of the year, but I'm guessing that my guest today in her office probably hates this time of the year, but we're here with Preeti Emrick, who is the Director of the Office of Emergency Management for Anne Arundel County. And we are here today primarily because September is Disaster or Emergency Preparedness Month.
National Preparedness Month.
The official word is National Preparedness Month.
Yes.
Thank you. And because, I mean, we always hear this September through November is really like the peak hurricane season for pretty much East Coast. And we're hearing about it right now in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. There's a couple. But we wanted to touch base and really sort of see how Anne Arundel County is positioned for emergencies, because we're kind of in a weird place. I mean, we all know what we went through with COVID, and you guys are instrumental in, controlling that as well. But you are, after your name, you have a JD, which I'm assuming is a Juris Doctor.
Yes.
So you are an attorney.
I went to American University. There's my diploma.
There you go. My daughter went to American.
Oh, so wonderful.
And you are a CHEC.
Yes.
Which I don't know what the heck that means.
That is a Certified Hospital Emergency Coordinator. So in my previous role, one of my many previous roles, I worked as an emergency manager for a hospital system, University of Maryland Capital Region Health.
Not an easy job either there.
No,
I don't imagine. I don't imagine. But for those that are unaware, I mean, the OEM, the Office of Emergency Management of the county, is really integrated and related with police, fire, EMS, and pretty much anything that might have a flashing light on top of their vehicle. You have little tentacles that jump into and to be able to coordinate that. And you are the management when we have a big thing. I mean, you're not worrying about broken arms and broken legs. No. But when we have 100 people with broken arms and broken legs, then that's where you would.
That something has happened that, necessitates that coordination and management. And yes, emergency management is typically something seen with public safety, especially a larger public safety incident. But as COVID has taught us, there's many different types of emergencies, and that impact many different issues in a community. So we're talking about, food insecurity, housing, and that's a lot of, when you talk about the tentacles that I have, as more disasters become more complex in nature, our role has really expanded into touching the community with all those different impacts and seeing how we can obviously alleviate some of those impacts.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned food insecurity, and I do love the way that the Anne Arundel County in particular has really sort of branched out into what most people would not consider their lane, if you will. You mentioned that OEM is involved with food insecurity. We know that we now move gun violence into a health issue. Right. And that's something obviously that you're involved with there. I mean, we're bringing in the libraries to give gun locks. We've got all the Narcans are in vending machines in public buildings and stuff like that, which is really kind of neat. But let's talk about National Preparedness Month. Anne Arundel County has 500 and some odd miles of shoreline.
Yes, of shoreline.
And that means we've got about 500 miles of vulnerable property to flooding. Mm-hmm. Some of it, a lot of it private, some of it public. Mm-hmm. What do we need to know for National Preparedness Month?
Preparedness starts at home. And so one of the things I appreciate about emergency management is that we take the whole community concept. The government has their role, communities have their role, and then the individual itself has his or own role in order to make sure that they're prepared, that they could respond, and that they could recover. And especially for National Preparedness Month, disasters can happen at any time. I love that there's a month focused on this because it brings more attention to it, but we need to be prepared every single day. And so there are a lot of good steps that an individual can take, whether it's, developing an emergency plan for their family, a communications plan, building up resources in their home in case, they don't have electricity for 3 days. What do you do? So taking these simple steps in order to make sure your family is resilient. That leads to a community being resilient. That leads to a county being resilient. You see where I'm going here.
It's the snowballs.
It's a snowball effect. But that's why I think the theme, especially for this month, it starts at home, is really important. And, you talk about flooding on the coastal line. Absolutely. That's something that is a problem that gets more and more complex with climate change. There's also flooding inland, even in areas where, you're not surrounded by water.
Sure. Well, that's what the Nashville.
Yeah. with the weather the way it is, we really have to make sure that we understand what our county topography is, the environment, what mitigation actions we could take. Listen, there are things that sometimes are outside of our hands, but making sure that you are resilient in order to face what might come is truly important.
Well, what you say is it starts at home and the community thing. I mean, that really is very important. And I know we've talked about, we work with the SPCA and we said, don't forget about the dogs. Yeah. Just, and the cats and stuff. What are you going to do there? Yes, there may be some damage from a hurricane that comes up the bay and wind damage and everything else. Your house may be fine, but there may be a huge tree blocking access. Okay. Now that blocks fire department. That blocks EMS. That blocks police response. That blocks you getting food. Maybe you have electricity, maybe you don't, but that's all stuff that you really need to sit down and consider. And, as we start here in September, I mean, we're going into a period where I know the fire department is going to start to see people that are going to start lighting fires in their fireplaces. Okay. We need to have the chimneys cleaned and the whole 9 yards. Right. And you're going to be seeing more emergencies come up. I mean, you've got people that maybe, have had their electricity off or they don't have electricity and they've got kerosene heaters in their homes. And it's a whole nother different. Yes. And it happens. That's the whole thing that's really kind of frightening. So you want to really make sure to see what you've got and how you can control it yourself. Because I had a friend that was I can't remember what kind of a psychologist he was, but it was, he said, you are the only one that's responsible for your own safety. And it was mostly when you were traveling. It was like, so don't assume that a cruise line or a tour company or something like that is going to keep you safe. I mean, yes, they're going to do everything they possibly can. Right. But you are ultimately the one that's responsible for it.
And I think people sometimes get scared when they start to think about, what do I need to do to be prepared? And it can be overwhelming. And that's why I like to break it down into really simple steps. Number one, sign up for our mass notification system, Alert and Arundel. And I could give you the number. You could text a number to sign up. That's number one, right? Because communication is key in understanding what is going on in the county.
And that's a great service. I will say I've got it all. I've got it on my phone and it comes through. And 90% of the time I look at it and go, okay, well, this is not really applicable to me.
And that's okay.
But I'm aware that it's happening. Right. And if it does apply to me, then I'm like, I know what to do.
The second step is we have so many resources available, whether it's online, whether it's our trainings and presentations that could give you the information on the steps you could take to be prepared. And we could break it down into, hey, it's hurricane season. This is how you build a kit, right? This is how you make a plan. By the way, here's an easy guide that you could just write things down in order to feel prepared. And let me tell you, empowering people is the first step really to making sure that they have that preparedness and resiliency. And when you break it down into, here are some of the easy steps. Write down the phone numbers of the people that you need to contact. It gives people that knowledge of, okay, so when an emergency happens, I don't have to scramble to think of what do I need to do. Here it is laid out. And then we have so many trainings that we give, whether it's CPR, stop the bleed, civilian response to active shooter trainings. Knowledge is power. And so what we want to make sure is you understand your county, you understand your community. Then what can you do?
A lot of this really came to light during 9/11. Yeah. And we were caught with our pants down. No question about it. But I do remember when my kids, who are flown and grown now at this point, were, in elementary school, and we couldn't get a hold of the school. The phones were down. The phones were jammed. Wow. Even picking them up, it was kind of crazy. It was like they knew who I was. I was on the board of the school, and I still needed to show ID to prove that I was who I was to get the kid. So you don't want to wait until the S hits the fan before you figure out what you need to do. Right. And I do remember in the aftermath of 9/11, people were thinking like, where is this ultimately going? I mean, are there more things, stuff like that? And people were literally, I'm going to say these doomsdayer things, but I had friends that said, well, I've got a boat, so I'm not going to go toward DC. I'm not going to go to West just because that's a sort of a target. I'm not really going north because you got New York and these big cities. So I'm going south, but I'm going to go out on the bay. And I'm going to, and people were thinking about this, maybe a little bit extreme, but not a bad idea to think about how you would get out. I mean, just even how to get out of your own road.
Yes. And, we have peninsulas. There's one way in, one way out, right? And so when something happens to cut off that access, there's two things you need to think about, right? what do you have to do on the other side of the road that you may have to have phone numbers with, make plans about, etc.? Or I can't get back home. So what are the backup plans I have? Is it to stay with a friend? Is it to get a hotel? What do I need? Who do I need to contact? If it's daycare, does your daycare have a plan if that happens? So all these things that if you know you have a high probability of a peninsula getting cut off, while we're working on projects to help avoid that, what can we do in order to prepare for that to happen? And it might be keeping a supply in your car, because you may have to wait in your car.
Yeah. Blanket, first aid kit, case of water.
Right. This is where communities really shine. And especially in the peninsulas where communities come together in their social network. You've seen it online.
Sure.
Hey, I have this, or hey, I can transport people. I can walk people to the other side. This is what I can do.
But you look at when the winter comes around, and I don't know whether thankfully or not, I'm missing the big winters, but with the snows and everything else. But you've got the folks that have the 4-wheel drives that take people to the hospital, take people to their doctor's appointments that you need to fill prescriptions and stuff like that. And that's really the community. And I will say during COVID, and I hate to keep harping back on that, but that really, as horrible as it was, it really allowed Anne Arundel County, the community, to shine. I mean, the businesses came together, the people came together. It was a lot more of a friendly attitude than it is in the world today.
One of the things I always recommend, check in on your neighbor. See how they're doing. You have the power to help people. And that's really what COVID shone a light on, that we can have that ability to just extend a hand and say, hey, what do you need? Do you need a trip to the grocery store? Do you need me to buy you groceries? Right? Or, hey, how are you doing? The simple act of checking in, especially in COVID where we were isolated for a time being, right? Just that friendly extension of, how are you doing?
It really is. And I spoke with the folks at the National Association for Suicide Prevention, and they said that exactly as what you said, Preeti, was that the best thing you can do, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And it takes nothing. It takes nothing to check in to say, hey, how are you?
And I always encourage that, especially knock on wood, maybe the September will flow by and we won't have the threat of something approaching the coastline. But especially if elderly neighbors, if you have neighbors with disabilities, checking in on them. Do you have a generator? Do you need help storing medications? Do you need a trip to the hospital or something? Do you have enough food? Most of the communities, obviously, if we tell them, hey, you're on your own for 72 hours, please build this kit, make sure you have food and water and, chargers in order to make sure that, your phone is good. Most people can do that, right? It's the vulnerable populations we are concerned about. But you have the power to say, hey, my neighbor, how are you doing? What do you need? Right. What can I do to help you? Because sometimes during those 72 hours, we at the government level were putting out fires left and right on what is happening. And so knowing your community, making sure that if there are things that need to be elevated to us, that's the power you have to give the Office of Emergency Management a call when we have activated our Emergency Operations Center and say, I have a neighbor who only has 1 day of insulin left and she needs help.
Right. Whatever it is, it may be a helicopter that drops a bottle of insulin.
But that's what we have the preparedness plans for, right? So we have our emergency operations plans. We have plans for evacuation. We have plans for sheltering. That's when something happens, depending on the situation, those are the plans that get activated.
Right. Well, you are the nucleus of an emergency. You've got the police that are taking care of accidents and maybe closed roads. You've got the fire department that's putting out literally fires. You've got the health department that's working about if there's, malaria is rolling through because of the mosquitoes or, you've got the shelter in place. You've got the shelters that need to be open that the cities are all working and the local communities are. And then you've also got a bunch of groups. I know Bruce Morgenstern is a good friend
I was going to say community emergency response team, if you have an opportunity even to just attend a training, talk about empowering communities. That is a training that you will find out, there's so much more that I could do. And here are the resources and the trainings that I never knew the government had, that my community had. So everyone, even if you do not become a member of our community emergency response team, attend a training.
Right. That's what AAA-CERT.org.
Yeah, AAA CERT. CERT is a tremendous help to us. I call them an extension of the Office of Emergency Management. If we need help in opening a shelter, when the tornadoes came by in 2021 that hit Arundel County and the city of Annapolis, it was volunteers who helped us with damage assessment. It was volunteers who told us, hey, here's a family that's in need. Their house has been moved from its foundation. What can we do to help? And this is what their needs are. And by the way, I have other organizations at the state level who are able to provide XYZ.
Right,
just working in
clothing or house shelter. It's
working in collaboration. It produces miracles, to be, honest. And, you talk about police and fire, the first responders. I never classify myself as a first responder. I support the first responders, but I like your description of being the nucleus, because a disaster can have so many different impacts, even impacts we may not realize. And that could be health and human services. That could be environmental impacts, the public safety impacts. And we got to make sure to meet all of those impacts and see what we can do for the community.
Well, sure. I mean, if you take this out into okay, let's look for a regular police call. A cop goes out, okay, and he needs to be in touch with his communications officer saying, hey, we've got this, we've got the guys running, a bad guy's running, I'm getting them, I need help, whatever it may be.
Right.
That communication is essential. Fire department doesn't need to know about that until somebody gets shot. Okay, but the fire department doesn't necessarily need to know about what's happening there, nor did the police department really need to know that, little Timmy fell down and broke his arm. However, when that S hits the fan here, being the nucleus here at OEM, you're able to communicate. The police may not necessarily know what the Department of Environment says because there was do we have trains in Maryland? The freight trains to run through the county? I don't know whether we do.
We do have commercial trains.
Okay. Yeah. So if there's a freight train that derailed and there's some, methyl ethyl bad stuff that's floating up into the air,
right,
the police may not necessarily know about that, but the Department of Environment may know about that. And you are the ones that's going to be able to coordinate and patch those through together and say, hey, officers, don't go running into this. It's not fog.
So, when our emergency operations center is activated, and there's different levels of activations, we could have some other agency representatives there, or it could be every agency representative is going to be sitting there. That's why we're all sitting down in one room and always talking about what's happening with the incident, having timely briefings so that we understand what the updates are. And then each agency reports out, this is what I am doing. So we all have that situational awareness, because believe it or not, there are so many different programs at the local, state, and federal level that you may not even know. Some agency may come to me and say, oh, I need help with this. Who can I contact? 9 out of 10 times I have that information.
Right.
Because I coordinate on a daily basis with a lot of agencies. So that's when there is a larger scale incident. Obviously, with smaller incidents, there's things that happen all the time that sometimes, let's say there is an apartment complex fire and now you just don't have one resident displaced from a single home fire. You have families, maybe 30, 40 people. I'm not going to activate my emergency operations center for that, but that's when we go on the scene. We work with the American Red Cross. We work with crisis response. A shout out to them because they're 24/7 and talking about helping people in need. Doesn't have to be a large scale disaster for them. Work with the fire department and say, okay, who has a place to go? Who can reach out to a family member? Who may need a place to stay? Do we need to open a shelter? All that goes on the scene. And then we help the people, we triage them, any needs they might have, if they don't have food, if they need, pet sheltering, if they need a place for their elderly, grandmother. Those are the type of smaller scale incidents that probably won't make the news that, oh, here's an Office of Emergency Management, right? Because we don't activate our EOC for that. But what's the same there, whether it's a small scale incident versus a larger scale incident? It's the communication. It's that coordination.
Sort of the same procedure, if you will.
It's the same procedure. And our agencies are well trained. We have trainings and exercises all the time for our agencies because you don't know what's going to happen. I could have never predicted the Key Bridge would fall. Right. But we have core capabilities They're called emergency support functions that each agency understands their roles and responsibilities in an incident. So if I need a shelter, okay, I'm going to go to my Department of Social Services and my health department, and we're going to organize this. It could be because of the Key Bridge. It could be because of a small fire. You still have those same capabilities. Nothing about that changes. It's the complexity of the incident, obviously, and the scale.
What are the main threats that we see in Anne Arundel County that would activate the Emergency Operations Center?
One is weather-related, flooding, coastal hazards, thunderstorms, especially with climate change. The storms are becoming more severe, and especially with weather-related extreme temperatures. We have had hotter climates, colder winters. And the storms are causing more, especially this summer, flash flooding, a lot of damages in terms of neighborhoods. So that's something that will always impact Anne Arundel County, especially the 500 plus coastline that we have.
Sure. What are you guys prepared? And it's a loaded question, I know, but are you guys prepared for everything?
That is a loaded question. The way you,
I mean, because we don't know what everything is. I mean, did we see the Key Bridge falling down into the Patapsco? Did we see,
Can I anticipate every scenario? No.
Yeah.
So can I always say, yes, we are prepared 100% for it. But are we prepared in our core capabilities and emergency support functions that I know that there are certain impacts that go into categories that our agencies can meet the need, our volunteer organizations can meet the needs, that I could always request assistance from the state? Yes.
Right. And we also work very well with the surrounding counties as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So whenever there is a large scale incident, we have numerous surrounding jurisdictions checking up on us. Hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? We have the state checking in. Hey, do you need anything? Because again, it's all working together.
Right. I mean, just some stupid things as we're coming into hurricanes.
It's never stupid.
Okay. Stupid things are like stupid questions, right?
There's no
such things.
There's no such things.
But as far as, just tips for people as we come into hurricane season, okay, never drive through standing water.
Turn around, don't drown. It is never worth your life to cross that flooded road. It's just not worth it.
It's an expensive price to pay when you test it.
It's expensive for you. It's expensive for first responders. It could cost your life, and it's scary. So I don't care how big your vehicle is.
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, the same thing with ice. Hey, I got 4-wheel drive. Great. No. How's that work on ice for you?
Yeah, no. Turn around.
Make the plan. We already talked about that. Make sure that you include medicines that you need.
Medicines for you need?
Take that, your animals, your kids, what they're going to do.
Communication methods. What chargers do you have? If you have medical equipment, that depends on external power sources. Do you have a plan for that, right? Do you have a backup generator? Or do you have a backup facility that you could go to, etc.? In a large scale disasters, we would open up shelters, etc. But now we're facing storms where, are you okay if 24 hours without electricity? So, it's good to think a big scale. What I also want people to do is think, what are the smaller scale things? And build up upon that. I think it's really easier to take your plan into bite-sized chunks when you say, okay, I could do this for 24 hours. Okay, now I could build it up to 48, and now so on and so
72,
forth. Yeah.
maybe it's a week or something like that. I mean, yeah, exactly. Think about when you're mad at BG&E because the power's out. How do we survive this?
And we can't control BG&E. As much as I know people love to do that, we can't control BG&E. So there's a recent announcement by BG&E that there's going to be some power outages long term. Let's not panic over that. What is your plan? Because that could happen anytime.
Sure.
Anything could cause that power outages. So what is your plan to get through the power outages? Okay, let's say 6 hours. What is your plan? You're okay for 6 hours? Okay. Build it up to 12 hours. All right. Keep building it up so that because the derecho, people lost power for an extended amount of time. And so obviously there are things in place at the local government level, at the state level where, okay, here are shelters, here are some backup facilities that maybe if you have medical equipment, you could charge your medical equipment. But again, starts at home.
It does, because you've got the ability. Okay, I'll go back to like Isabel when she rolled through here. I mean, there were some of the South County that had, was 3 weeks, 4 weeks without electricity. That's obviously extreme, but I mean, the county is, and you did open up places to stay and everything else, but I mean, it's not this huge, mass, giant thing, but you still needed to handle it. But a lot of that could have been handled at home for a period of time. I don't think
for a period of time,
but
right. And then, I'm the first to admit that, if I'm asking somebody 3 to 4 weeks, okay, hunker down at home and make sure you have a food supply for home. That's unrealistic, right? But there's only so many resources we have, and we really want to, take care of the most vulnerable populations to make sure that their needs are met, while also meeting everybody else's needs. And so with that limited amount of resources you have, making sure that you're prepared at home, if you have the capability and the resources, I understand not everybody does. But if you do have those capabilities and resources, start building it up. Because it benefits the community as a whole. It benefits your first responders.
Sure.
Because we are taking care of the true needs.
Mm-hmm.
And with the, limited resources we have, we understand which places might need it.
Well, again, we also hear the stories about, like with EMS, where you've got the frequent flyers that just, I've got a headache, I need to go to the hospital, but they don't have. And that puts a strain on that, because that ambulance is no longer available. And the hospitals are, unfortunately, notoriously slow as far as getting them in, through and out of the emergency, so they have to stay there.
It's only so many resources that could go around. So if you could build up your own capabilities, that gives you so much more peace of mind. It's the same things that every day we go through, right? Yep. What can I do to keep my family fed, to keep them healthy? The everyday things. So in a disaster, sometimes those everyday things are in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. And who suffers the most? Right? The vulnerable populations that depend on programs that might be gone in an instant because of a disaster. Right? And so building up that capability so that you have the resources at home, but also checking in on your neighbors, again, who may not be able to build out that capabilities. And then overall, we have a big county to take care of, and we want to make sure everybody's taken care of. But what levels? That's really a determination that, again, for National Preparedness Month, we want to make sure you are the best prepared.
Do you guys maintain any type of thing? I mean, I know that the police department, with their new Arctic system, is registering residential cameras, to say, hey, do you have one? Would you be willing to share that information if we need be, and so on and so forth. Disclaimer, they're not looking at your cameras.
Yes.
Okay, let's just make sure Chief Allen is okay with that. But they're not looking at your cameras, but they want to know who has them. Do you guys maintain a database of vulnerable people in the county? Is there a way to register with the Office of Emergency Management and say, hey, I am immobile. I cannot walk. I need without my electric chair or without my wheelchair or something like that? I mean, do you maintain that, or is that the fire department? Or
so there's a couple of avenues that we can obtain that information. So we don't have a specific registry list. It is a big county. So when people sign up for such a registry list, that list, as you can imagine, can become very full. So we coordinate with our county agencies, aging and disabilities, with our health department, who know the communities, who have clients, who have residents that utilize their programs, to make sure that, especially when we anticipate a big storm that's coming, we coordinate with these agencies to send out messaging, especially to assisted living facilities, to nursing homes, and especially with any of their clients that might be impacted, to say, hey, this is what's happening. And if you lose power, or if you have a need, these are the numbers to contact. Please, for 911, I know they do keep notes on, hey, we may have been with this house before, and this might, be, a family member that might be elderly, etc. I know crisis response has, obviously, in terms of their clientele and who they have, in the communities as well.
Preeti, and this goes all back to the communications and to your neighbor, how are you doing? I know the county has got a wonderful program. I believe it's through the Department of Aging where, and I will put it in the total vernacular, but it's call an old person. Like me. Where the county will outreach just every day or two, somebody that may be living at home with their kids. I mean, they're not necessarily invalid. They're not necessarily having issues, but just kids maybe in California or New York or wherever it is. And it's like, hey, how you doing? Doing good. It's hot. Okay, well, welcome to the world. Yeah. We'll talk to you in a couple of days, and that's it. And it's just such a wonderful peace of mind for family members as well as the people that are receiving the calls.
Absolutely. And that's something that even in non-disasters, let's build those relationships so that when a disaster happens, they know who they can go to.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they have their son or daughter living in California, they might call them, but if they need some food, they're going to go next door if they know you and say, please help.
And again, talking to your neighbors is, there's no effort involved. There's no cost involved there.
There's no cost.
And it's so much easier to be nice than it is to be mean.
Exactly. And this is not to say that for every neighbor, you have to do it all, right? You have to go out of your way and meet their every needs. But if you know there's an issue, escalate it. Call county government. We want to hear that because that way we can help our community. So, we talk about situational awareness and a common operating picture among county agencies. And what that means is, okay, we understand what's going on in this incident. We have the updates. We know what the response is. We know what the recovery is. We know what each agency is doing. We need that type of data from our community members. So don't be shy about saying, hey, I am really concerned about my neighbor. Can you do a wellness check? Absolutely. Easy peasy. We will do that because if there are, even if they're not in danger, listen, it's always good to check about them.
The police, I know the police, there's no cop that regrets doing a wellness check.
Absolutely not.
When they're there, I remember my girlfriend one time, her daughter was having some medical issues and she ended up oversleeping and had her phone on silent and didn't. And it was like, ring, text, the whole 9 yards. There was nothing going on. And it was, she overslept. So she didn't show up at work.
Right.
So we sent, lives up in Towson, sent Baltimore County Police up there. They're knocking on the door. And she's like, well, why is there a cop in my door?
Right.
But he was perfectly happy to do it. She was a little bit embarrassed, but it was, put everybody at ease.
That's what exactly, for those few moments of embarrassment, because what if something had happened to you?
Right.
And so you could get the help that you need. And sometimes I think people, it's a small thing, or I'm going to be embarrassed, or, I don't
want to put you out.
I don't want to put you out. No, that's
what they're paid the big bucks.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Government.
But, again, also people make sure that your phones and stuff are charged when storms are coming in, and make sure that you've got the battery backups that you have.
It's really simple things like that, but also listening to officials before a storm. And if we have the luxury of knowing that, yes, this hurricane is coming towards us, there's so much messaging we put out there about what you need to do and how to get prepared. Now, I want you to start getting prepared way before then, because you never know what's going to happen every day. But just listening to those, hey, this is how you can be prepared, don't think it's never going to happen to you.
Where are the best places to be prepared? Okay, I know way back when they used to say, make sure you have a transistor radio with batteries. Okay, now we've got problems here. I don't know if there's any radio stations that broadcast. I mean, I know that the federal government does have the thing, but where... And I know obviously if we rely on the internet, and Comcast goes down, we've got a problem there. What are the best ways to keep up to speed on that? I mean, if the power goes out, the TV's out and the cable's out, I mean, what are the best ways to listen for the communications from OEM?
So for weather situations, having a weather radio is key. If we are in a situation that we have all communications down, especially at OEM, we do rely on our ham radio group. It's called ARIES, Amateur Radio Emergency Services Group. And they are able to communicate messages via satellites. Even if we have to go the simple way of door to door to say, hey guys, this is what's happening. You need to whatever protective measure that we have in place.
Shelter in place packed. We'll have a bus down here to pick everybody up or whatever it may be.
It may just go to the simpler times, as I call it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're right. We talk about so much on social media. So much depends on the internet. Even with Alert and Arundel, right?
Sure.
Get it on your phone. Well, then what if the phones are down, right? And you're right in terms of nationally, there's, emergency alerts that go out, with messaging in terms of, if communications are down, etc. But if we have to go door to door to get the message across that something's happening, that's what we have to do.
And we're fortunate enough, probably not enough, but we've got, a large police force in Arundel County. We've got a large fire department in Arundel County. Public Works gets involved in that as well.
And volunteers. It could be our community emergency response team.
Right.
Going door to door and saying, hey, this is what's needed.
And here's the situation. Here's the prognosis.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to talk about some other things that OEM does. You've got the chest thumping, really cool, emergency stuff, but you're involved in the gun locks in the libraries.
Yes.
Which again is a huge thing. I mean, we know gun violence is just a huge, and I think I was reading an article where it said that, guns have killed more teens than car crashes in the last, I can't remember what the thing was, which was absolutely staggering to me. You've got, which I love this one. It's, her heroes on the horizon, which is perfect for Preeti Emrick, who is sitting here as running OEM. You are a female in we'll say a male's world, and that was air quotes, but that was a summer camp that you guys put out, to really get, girls, young women that are trying to figure out their lot in life, where they want to go and whatnot, to realize that, this is something that you can embrace, that you can do. And it may not be your thing, but let's check it out.
So for us, it's twofold, right? Obviously, we want to encourage young women to go in the field of public safety, emergency management. The other part of it too is they may not go in those fields, and that's totally okay. But we want to expose them to what local government has to offer. These are the services that we have. These are the resources. This is what you need to do in an emergency, right? This is who you need to call. Having that knowledge is key. They may never step into the field of emergency management, police or public safety or EMS or any of that stuff. But at least educating them, that is perfect. And the camp also talks about leadership skills, public speaking. We have a really fun activity called the Jim Cantori story. We all know Jim Cantori, right? In the middle of the hurricane, trying to, report on what's happening and not getting injured. So we have the young women in our TV studio, in the county TV studio, reenact what it would be like to be in a hurricane and have to report out what is happening. And then hold a press conference on, these are the steps you have to take. So it's about public speaking. You can't be shy when you're telling people you have to do X, Y, Z. You have to take this protective action. If you don't, you might be killed. Some of them, that's their first time public speaking. Which is a huge thing, that you don't have to go into any of those fields. You do public speaking for most of your life, right? And so how do you synthesize something to get the main points across and deliver it in a way that is effective and will get the public to speak? And then you have to see yourself on TV and how you did. Right. Which is always for them,
That's a thrill.
It's a thrill for some. Some are like, I don't want to see it. But again, that builds the confidence that you need. So one of the new things we're actually developing that I wanted to, talk to you, and hopefully when we get past the pilot, we can encourage participation of, is Anne Arundel Ready. So we talk about, preparedness starts at home, right? And we want our communities to be prepared. Businesses and local organizations are part of that community, because in a disaster, if you have a business down, if you have a local organization down, that really impacts how the community can recover, right? If you have a grocery store that's not opening for weeks on end, that leads into food insecurity, right? If you have a hospital that goes down, that directly impacts your health care. But it can be even smaller than that.
It can be a hardware store. You don't have the stuff to fix the window.
But that is the local businesses and local organizations are obviously the heart of communities. How quickly they can come up really, impacts how quickly a community can recover. So we're starting a new program to help businesses and local organizations with their continuity of operations, with making sure that they have the resources and trainings to be more resilient. And so there's going to be a series of trainings. And what does OEM do? What does county government do? How can we help you with guidance and plans so that your business, your local organization can be more resilient? And so offering this yearly to businesses so that, okay, I know if there's an emergency or a disaster, this is how my business can recover. Again, making sure that a different sector of the community is prepared.
And it's making sense to me too, because if I'm sitting here thinking about myself and my family and everything else, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'll just, pay the landlord the rent and he'll fix the windows or whatever it may be. But again, you look at, and then we'll go back into COVID and the businesses that they're harmed and with their shutdowns and everything else and the funds that came through and everything else. I was talking to Amy Gowan at Economic Development Corp. And, I did jokingly say it was sort of like the money laundering thing because, it was the government was handing them money and they, or give it to the county and the county says, well, we can't get rid of this fast enough here. Let's put it over to here and we'll slide it out over to you. But it was just such a lifeline to so many businesses. And, absent Arundel Economic Development Corp, absent, the foresight of the county government being able to support the local businesses, which this seems to be a further extension of, I wouldn't even want to venture to say how many businesses would not be here today. Similarly, when you look at what they did with COVID and handling COVID, as much as you want to, you can squawk and moan about how it was horrible or good, but how many more people could potentially have died? And to sit there and deny that it wasn't, my kid was up in New York during, it was like,
Economic recovery is just as important as physical recovery. Right? When we talk about disasters and what the, impacts are, we tend to focus on, the physical, my roads are shut down. My house is destroyed, which is very obviously devastating, right? It could lead to further impacts in terms of how can I get to work? Where do I live, etc. You take away a business, that could economically devastate a community. We want to keep those businesses going, even in the worst of times. So how can we help businesses prepare? Financial is one thing, right? Absolutely. You're right, especially in a disaster. And if it's a disaster that can get federal assistance, money helps, right? But how can we build that culture beforehand, understanding that not only would an economic recovery help a community recovery, but when we talk about preparedness starting at home, we want to make sure that that person who's running a company helps
starting there as well.
Starting there as well. So, and that's a tough thing to do. In this economy, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's tough running a business.
Oh, and sure.
So telling them, by the way, in case this happens, how do you be prepared? So we're going to make it as easy as possible to give them the resources, the trainings, the planning guidance, not only to understand what's best for my business, but network with other business, network with other local organizations so that there is that community of businesses.
That's the whole neighbor thing. If I'm capable of going to the grocery store and buying you food for somebody that can't, there is a business, maybe it is a hardware store that says, hey, I've got a bunch of hammers that we can do to figure out.
We see that in the aftermath of disasters. Everybody wants to help, right? We need to harness that before the disaster, so people understand where they can seek help, where those partnerships are already at. And especially when you're talking about public-private partnerships, I've said it before, we can't do it alone, right? Everybody has their part, but does everybody understand what their part is? Businesses have a part, locals have a part, communities have a part. And I've talked to many communities especially in the peninsula, some of them have banded together, taken an inventory of their resources, that in the case that they're shut off, into access, and this is what we have, right? Okay, well, we have 5 golf carts, We could transport people.
Three boats, whatever.
3 boats. We need to go the other way. That is so important. Just to even talk about it. You don't need a large written plan of, okay, this is what we need to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. These are the resources I have. Here's my communication chain. Okay, so Susan is going to call Bill and, or walk to his house and say, okay, this is what we need to do. Let's gather a community meeting. To do that before something strikes.
It's huge.
It's huge. And let me tell you, again, we have the limited resources. If we hear of a community that has some of these things, or like, wonderful. What can we do to help you, to supplement, to help you guidance and a plan so that you could put it all together? That's what part of the trainings that OEM offers is, and we have been back to the same communities over and over again, not because they don't understand, because they have taken that next step to become more resilient, and we want to be with them every
to make sure that they are resilient at that level.
Absolutely.
Well, and you also think about the resiliency in a community or a business or something like that. I mean, yes, that's great for a large scale emergency or something, like a big storm that comes up. But again, a car wrecks into a telephone pole and shuts down Forest Drive in Annapolis. Okay, now you're done for maybe 8 hours. And so it's a much smaller level, but I mean,
something small like that. And again, I can't control the traffic accidents, and there are projects, right?
Right.
And I'm not even going to begin to talk about projects that are underway that may help mitigate some of that. But okay, so what steps can we take, understanding that may happen, right? Is it keeping a supply in your car of what food you might need, what medication, a blanket, right? Communication methods. Do you have a radio? Again, simple things to put in your car. And then signing up for notification systems. We have Alert Arundel. The city of Annapolis is on the same system as we are. So we have, communication across boundary lines is pretty easy because we talk, we communicate all the time. Sign up for both systems. That way you have the best of both worlds, right? To have that knowledge going forward. Again, there are things that, may happen in terms of my peninsula may get cut off. Forest Drive may have an accident, and there you go. But again, having that information with you, whether that's in your car, having that communication lifelines to family members, friends on the next steps you need to take is really important.
Well, we've talked about Arundel Alert. You mentioned it a couple different times, and you can text AA Alert, so that's 3 A's and then alert, to 38276 on your cell phone. That'll get you signed up there. And you can also unsubscribe if you want at the end if you move out of the area. That's easy enough
absolutely.
To do. But it's really invaluable, and the city has a similar one there as well. And I would say that, certainly if there is any kind of emergency, you never hesitate to dial 911.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, if you think there's a life safety issue or your life is in danger, that's absolutely correct.
But, keep up. And also, we talked about radios and batteries and stuff like that. I just dawned on me that vehicles, yes, you may not be able to get it in your house, but you may be able to go out and start your car. If you've got fuel in it, and the car will start to be able to listen to a radio there to get some information as well.
Absolutely.
When does this program start for businesses?
So we're currently building up the pilot program.
Okay.
So we're hoping in 2026 we could fully launch it.
That's exciting.
It is very exciting because it is so important to me, to my office, to reach all parts of a community. And so if there is some way to guide not only HOAs, neighborhood communities, but businesses, other local organizations to be more prepared, that is so exciting to me. And it gives me a peace of mind, right? That we have done what we can to make sure people have the information and that they're building their own resilience.
What keeps Preeti Emrick up at night?
It's funny you ask that because just in the past 5 years, so many unusual things have happened. It can't even be scenario driven anymore. What keeps me awake at night is that I didn't do my job in terms of spreading the word on what it means to be prepared and how to be resilient. There's a lot of things out of my control in terms of infrastructure, in terms of environmental concerns, but how to best prepare my county so that people understand what they can do at home or where they can go.
I'll tell you, all the preparation you have and the classes that you offer and the training and everything else that goes out there. Where you learn a lot is after all that's done and the S has hit the fan and you break it out and you turn around and say, okay, where did we fall down? Where did we excel? Yeah. What can we do better? How do we do better? Develop the systems to do that.
After action reporting.
To be able to see what it is. I mean, and you talk about the things that are out of your control. I've got a friend of mine that does keynote speaking, and he also happens to be a juggler. And it's funny, and he closes out his show all the time, and he's juggling swords, and he cuts oranges and stuff like that. And ultimately, somebody will ask, "Well, don't you ever get cut?" And he says, "Hell yes! You should have seen when my hands when I first learned how to do this." And he cut a paper and a cigarette and all that stuff. And he says, "But eventually, I learned to stop worrying about the blades." Because they're going to do what they do. They cut. Yeah. But if I focus on the handles, I'm in a much better place.
Yeah.
And that, sort of the moral of his story when he talks. But I mean, I think that works really well with emergency preparedness as well. Yeah. This is what we can control. We can reroute traffic. We can put people here. We can give resources here. We can do this. We cannot build the Key Bridge. Okay. So we need to reroute it.
Exactly.
At least immediately.
And that's the message. Has such a great way of describing it, because that's what I want to impart to the community. I think people, again, the path to preparedness sometimes gets bottlenecked because there's too much going on, right? There's just too much and it's a big thing and I don't know where to start. What can we control at this point, right? That is within my house, for my family, etc. Even with my kids, right? I can't control what happens when they leave the house or what happens in school or if they're in a crowded place and something happens. But we talk about it. We practice. We train. We don't shy away from the conversation.
No, I mean, we've all had fire drills in school. We should be having them in our home.
Yeah. We should be having them in their home. Especially when, my kids are school age, we talk about active shooters. And I know it's a scary thing
that we have to talk about that.
We do, but I want them to be prepared. I want them to know that even if it happens and you are scared, there are things you can do. There are actions you can take to help you and your classmates.
Sure.
That goes to anything for emergency management. Whatever scenario you may come about, there's such basic things that you can follow in terms of your thought process, what you need to be prepared for. And it just takes a little time in a blue sky day to just think about it. So when
S hits the fan.
Yes, it's the fan. We're not sitting there. You may have a moment of panic. It's okay to panic. But then you're like, wait. Here are the steps.
I got this.
We got this. This is what we can do. This is how we can move forward.
Right.
If I leave the county and every person is prepared to do that,
you can sleep at night.
I can sleep at night. And even if you can't and you know who to call, I also can sleep at night.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. More importantly, I want to thank you very much for what you're doing for the county. And you are, your department here is pretty much like this little silent thing that's up here in Glen Burnie that not many people will know about. But when that S hits the fan, you're going to be very glad that they are here. It's just like, the fire department and the police department. I mean, you dial 911. You may never dial 911 in your life, but when you dial it, you want to make sure that it's there and on your side. And that's exactly what the Office of Emergency Management is for Anne Arundel County. With all the little tentacles they've got out and all the departments and all of the communities and all of the businesses coming up, that's going to make the county a much safer place to be. But we all want to be safe. We all want to be resilient. And you guys are the ones that are really the glue that's holding it all together and be able to grab everybody that's helping it on the individual basis and bring it all together. And we need to be thankful for your department.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for helping us spread the word. I know there's certain times of the year we get more attention. This is one of the National Preparedness Month, hurricane season, winter season coming up. But again, always keep in mind that emergencies, disasters could happen at any time. Be prepared. Please give us a call, 410-222-0600. If you have a question, if you'd like to request a training or a presentation, we also have a ton of information on our website, aacounty.org. OEM. Also, we have a place on our website where you could request a presentation, and we have all different types of presentations and trainings that we could give to you, or email oemoutreach@aacounty.org to request one. It could be for your neighborhood. It could be for your community. You can get a whole bunch of people together and we'll present. Again, the more people we can get to do outreach with, to talk about how to be prepared, that's where our job is. It makes our response a lot easier. It makes our recovery easier to have you play your role in it and understand what we do, what you can do, what businesses can do, locals, how the state feds and locals work together.
This has been a bonus podcast from Ion Annapolis. Please visit us at ionannapolis.net. Follow us on Facebook at All Annapolis and on Twitter at Ion Annapolis. And if you haven't subscribed to the Daily News Brief podcast, go for it. And all of your local news will be delivered to your phone, tablet, or smart device by 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday.